Welcome to Inner Peace with Dr. Reese, a program that can help you become liberated in the modern world. Now, here's your host, Dr. Kevin W. Reese.
Drumming. How powerful is it really? Welcome to episode number 57. Today, I'm talking to Craig Norton. He's a drum circle facilitator, a filmmaker, and a member of a band called Cosmic Hue. In this recording, we're going to talk about how drum circles can bring people together and how it can help with healing, how it raises vibrational energy, and how you can even train your lungs and your heart to go with the beat of a drum. We're going to talk about how cathartic it can be, how celebratory it could be, and how ancient it really is, and how it connects to the Native and African American cultures. All right, welcome to the podcast, Craig.
Hello, how you doing? Thanks for having me.
Tell me how a drum circle can bring people joy and peace.
Drumming is an ancient technology that's existed since, people were banging on logs with rocks. And it brings people together in such a way that, really percussion and banging in rhythm is something anybody can do. It's not like a violin where you have to study for years to get good at it, or be a prodigy at it.
Right.
Anyone can do it, and it's the great equalizer. It brings people together in such a way that, like when I do it in a corporate setting, the CEO and the custodian are, perhaps the custodian's a better drummer than the CEO, and
right.
They're on equal planes, and I love when that happens. I do this with kids, and I do this with elders, and it just seems like something everybody can do.
Yeah.
And be musical. Sometimes for the first time in their lives, when they are given, a drum in a drum circle.
Yeah, and watching the video of these drum circles, some of them have, it looks to be like 30 people or more.
Oh, more than that. Yeah, I've done drum circles. I did a drum circle at a Girl Scout camp with 230 kids.
Wow.
230. And I've done, drumming in New York City with 300 people. And there's a guy, one of my mentors, Arthur Hall, is known for doing these drum circles at conferences where there's, 400 or 500 people.
Wow.
It's nuts. It's so powerful because you asked about the healing aspect of that. And
yeah.
So here's the thing. When we hit a drum with with our hands or with a mallet, there is a visceral vibratory effect. And so one drum tapped is interesting. And one of the things I'll do with kids is to go around the room with a large frame drum and hit it right in front of them and have them hold up their hand to the back of the drum. So they literally get to feel sound.
Right.
And that's a science experiment right there.
Sure.
And I talk about, how we hear sound, but we don't often feel the sound of something unless it's extremely loud. And this is not necessarily loud. It's just the proximity. And so one drum is cool. It can provide a soothing, rhythmical entrainment with your heart, with your lungs, in a very intentional way. You can play your own heartbeat and entrain with your own heartbeat and slow it down.
Right.
You can play a rhythm that's slower and then train with your lungs and your breathing. And, you know, there are drums and percussion instruments that are kind of tuned for that sort of thing. And then there are groups of drummers. So when you have a room full of 50 drummers, all pounding on drums, that vibration it permeates the room. It touches every single cell in everyone's body in that room.
Right.
And it's healing. I've never had anybody walk out of a drum circle saying, "Oh, that's, you know, that hurts my ears, or that hurts my, you know, my body."
Well, it also seems cathartic too.
Absolutely.
Where people are getting out any energy blockages, or maybe anger, fear, right?
Absolutely. So one of the things I do with my drums is I'm hired by an organization based in Connecticut called Toivo. And they have a program called Healing from Within. And they offer meditation, sound healing, and drumming, and Qigong with our friend Eric Harris.
Mm-hmm.
And we go into psychiatric hospitals, group homes, couple different venues where the people there are in distress. They are either in temporary distress or they're in permanent distress, and you know, socially and emotionally. And when I drum with those people, there is an incredible catharsis that often takes place with them experiencing feelings of joy for the first time, you know, often in weeks or months or years, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty intense. And it happens all the time. It's consistent how often that happens. And it's at the heart of why I think I've been successful, is because it's witnessed by the people who work with these folks. And, you know, they come out of it joyful and connected.
Yeah.
In a place, you know, in for people who are not connected, who are often disassociative and are seeing, you know, nothing but the same thing every day in these hospitals, you know.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm bringing them just those moments of joy that often last. That's the beautiful thing that I've heard.
That's great. Yeah. Two things that come up on this podcast a lot are catharsis, and the other one is celebration. And drums go with both. There is a celebratory factor to people coming together and doing percussion, right?
Absolutely. So yeah, when we just get together and drum for the fun of it, or when I'm hired to be the sort of entertainment for an event, which I often do, or I often did until this whole coronavirus thing started.
And let's give the people a little visual too, because
yeah,
as the facilitator, as the drumming instructor, if you will, it almost looks like you're a conductor of an orchestra.
At times, absolutely. There is that school of drum circle facilitation, which is definitely one person leading, right? I lay down a solid participatory rhythm, right? This is not about performance. It's not about me. It is totally about giving the participants something to latch onto so they can play. I often begin with chaos, and you know how an orchestra kind of tunes up before a concert?
Yeah.
Oftentimes when the drummers get together, nobody's listening to each other. They're tapping their drums simultaneously, and it's chaos, it's noise. And I point that out. And I'm like, what do you think? And it's like, yeah, it's not very satisfying. And then I lay down a solid, typically a Native American heartbeat rhythm, just a quiet, solid 1, 2, 3, 4 rhythm that anybody can play. And when that moment of entrainment takes place, you could feel it. You could see the eyes opening up and looking around the room at each other and connecting with each other. And then once that foundation is laid down, then the expression of improvisation can take place within the heartbeat, right? And that's when I start to add, I explain, okay, now you can add some beats in between. You can remove some beats to leave space. You can stop drumming and just listen. You can get up and dance. These are all ways to participate. And
so somebody could go the celebratory route, or somebody could go the meditation route.
Exactly. And the celebratory, aspect of it is ancient, right? And it goes back in every single culture. We include music, not just drumming, but we include music in every celebration, don't we?
Yeah.
And, what would a wedding be like without music?
Right. What would a movie be like?
Exactly. Right. So we have, that aspect is ancient, and it's fun, and it brings people together again. And, why not, when you have, disparate people coming together, and that is the goal, is to, draw anyone and everyone who would like to participate can, regardless of age, regardless of skill level, and give them the opportunity to be musical.
Yeah.
For the first time, maybe, in a very long time, or in ways that they've never experienced before.
How is percussion and drumming, how is that deeply connected to the Native American traditions?
Right. So I have participated in powwow drumming, and I am not Native American. I'm obviously not African or African American, but I connect with those cultures deeply, musically and spiritually.
Right.
And for them, the drum serves multiple purposes, right? In multiple indigenous cultures. The biggest one is celebration, right? The most obvious one is celebration. When there's a birth in the village, they celebrate with drums. When there's a death in the village, they celebrate with drums. And it's a powerful way to bring community together, to celebrate, right? Yeah. And for Native Americans, it takes place typically around one large, what they call a gathering drum. And 5 or 6 people can gather around that drum and play it simultaneously. It's that big. And then they have the dancers who are out dancing to that beat. And it's entrancing. It's so powerful when you have 5 people playing a drum, and it just fills the room with that vibration.
Right. So I grew up a drummer. I started taking lessons in 4th grade, pretty young, and I never learned how to read music. I guess.
Me either.
I'm like a freestyle drummer, using both hands, both feet, on a drum kit. And I got pretty good. By the time I was in 6th grade, I did a talent show, and that was probably my first taste of applause,
Yeah.
which might have been addicting.
Just a little bit.
And then, so I would show off to my friends and stuff, and do drum solos and whatever. And then something interesting happened, Craig. When I was about 13 or 12 or 13, a friend of mine convinced me to go to a music camp. And I was like, oh, I don't know. He's like, oh, you're a great drummer, show people and you'll get better and you'll meet people. All right, fine. I went to the camp. I was thrown off by living in a tent, but that's another podcast for another day. And so I get together with the percussionists, right? And they got sheets of music. And I'm like, uh-oh. and so I'm the only one that doesn't know how to read music. I'm 12 years old here, right? Fragile ego here. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And then, Craig, there was this guy. I'll never forget it. His name was Ricky. He was blind. And he was awesome.
Yep.
He hopped on those drums and he slayed it, man.
Mm-hmm.
And he read the music in Braille.
Wow.
And my ego was destroyed at 12 years old. I'm like, this blind kid is kicking my ass.
Yep.
So I retreated, unfortunately, and didn't make it through. But I learned a valuable lesson that, you know, drums are powerful and they could even be played by the blind.
Right. Yeah. I've actually had a couple of friends, couple of blind drummer friends. And, you know, my friend Vinny would get a dial-a-ride kind of thing to the local drum circles and show up with his guide dog and sit down and just kill it. Yeah. You know, great drummer, great sense of natural rhythm, right?
Yeah.
And what they say is, you know, when you lose a sense of any sort, the other senses are escalated. And I think part of that is, you know, I went and visited him, or I think I took him home one day. And I went in his house, and he had old school clocks on every single wall in the house. And that formed a soundscape for him to wander through his house and know exactly where he is, which I thought was fascinating. But yeah, no, there's we share very similar entry stories, right? So I grew up in New York with a friend who had a drum kit in his basement. And we would go down there, and at that time, I'm a few years older than you, I suspect, and at that time, the Monkees were huge. They had this wacky TV show that they just went around and chased each other through parks and stuff. It was really, really silly, and it was perfect for the 8-year-old me to see that, oh, these guys are really having fun with music. So we would go down into his basement and pretend we were the Monkees, and I was the drummer. And I started that way. And then, you know, 4th, 5th grade, you get introduced to music in class, as, you know, in band in school. And I, of course, went for the drums. And at that point, I was given a wood block and drumsticks and sheet music. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't translate what was on the page into music. It just didn't make sense. And at that point, you know, the band teacher was like, yeah, you probably want to go play soccer or something. And I quit, and I never touched a drum again until I was in my mid-30s.
Wow.
And, you know, I had a boss at ESPN who said, you know, he saw me tapping my desk all day long. He knew I loved music. And he was like, oh, you should go to one of these drum circles. I think you'd really enjoy it. And it was, you know, I did. And it was just like this church basement drum circle in Glastonbury. And I walked in to the room, and I was late because I got lost. And I walked into that room, and it was just pulsating with rhythm. And that was it. I knew immediately that this was it for me, that this was something I could do. And that, and I could be a musician for the first time in my life.
Right on.
And that was 21 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, there's something about playing a single drum versus a kit.
Yeah, I can't play a kit. There's too many choices. I get mixed up when I have feet involved.
A kit also is more for a rock band, basically.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I've played in bands, and I've played with drummers, and I love it. But when I sit down at a drum kit, it's like overwhelming for my brain, and I just I can't put the feet together with the hands. I don't know what it is, but it doesn't work for me. But the hand drums that I play are simple, African style, djembes, a shiko drum. I play Native American, buffalo drums, and some metal pans that sound amazing. And my kit, my kit, a drum kit consists of what one drummer would play is maybe 3 or 4 cymbals and 4 or 5 drums, and my kit consists of about 100 drums that I take out, and I play one and I hand out the rest. So
my mentor, who I met at an ashram, he was a mystic, and he walked around with, he traveled with basically a backpack and a drum, and that was it.
Yeah.
And he would go down on the green with his drum, which was probably 2-3 feet tall, and he would just start drumming on that thing, African drumming, I think, and people would just gravitate towards it, man.
Yeah.
So here's this guy who super minimalist, needs nothing, just a bag and a drum.
Yeah, that would be me. I've been spending a lot of time, now that, basically I haven't touched a drum in a group since early March. And here we are in early June. I haven't been able to do what I do because it's social. It involves me sharing my drums with people with their hands on them. I've developed what I call a clean drum or a safe drum protocol for when things do get back to normal. But for now, I'm out of business, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm playing solo by myself. I'm teaching my partner to drum, and I have one partner in a band that I play with that we get together and make some videos once in a while. But other than that, I'm drumming for myself right now, and bringing that healing that I've been feeling like I'm on this earth to provide for other people. I'm focusing on myself right now and bringing it in, and it's different. It's very different. I miss playing with big groups.
I also think this is something I also talk about a lot on the podcast is just music in general. I feel that music without lyrics is more powerful than music with lyrics. That when we started coming out with classic rock, and eventually there was gospel, and then eventually it turned, then rap music came around, R&B music came around. You take something like that and you compare it side to side with some classic Indian music or some Beethoven, right? Or some Native American music. Maybe there's chanting, but not necessarily a story of words.
Right.
I feel that the instruments are more powerful than the lyrics themselves. Bon Jovi, Living on a Prayer, basically tugs at your emotions and gives you a feeling of like hope, and then you listen to Beethoven and it's just like smooth, you can get into a certain groove and the lyrics don't have to puppeteer you.
Definitely agree. I've experienced that myself. I don't want to speak for other people's taste in music, but I definitely listen to a lot of instrumental music. When I meditate or when I do yoga or tai chi, it's got to be instrumental music, and quiet, peaceful, tonal, ambient music is what my body craves when I'm stressed out, for sure.
Ambient music.
Oh yeah.
Soundscapes.
Yes, yeah, those are two key words for a lot of what I play when I'm in a band. Like I have a band called Cosmic Hue, and it's basically just me and Kalidasa Joseph Getter, who's a master musician. He teaches music at Yale and not at Yale, at Wesleyan, University of New Haven, and Southern Connecticut. He's an incredible musician who can just pick up any instrument and play it. And teach it, and he and I have this band that we play mostly in yoga classes, meditation, and it's very peaceful.
Very cool. So let's take a quick listen to some of your music with the band Cosmic Hue.
Our goal is to put people at peace, whereas, when you think of a band, a rock band, their goal is to not make people at peace, or, their goal is to fire people up and get them dancing or get them, banging their heads. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's a release for some people. You know what? That's their release. But music is universal. There is a piece of music out there for everyone, which is cool.
That's right. And where would you go play as a band?
Yoga centers. We have a couple of clients that hire us on an occasional or regular basis to sort of just do meditation, music for meditation. And we have corporate clients that have, like corporate wellness programs, and we go and play with their wellness programs.
Not only is drums used for all this beautiful stuff too, but going back into ancient times, they were also used for war too, right? Like the Vikings used the war drums. Boom, 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 boom. What's with that? Just letting the enemy know we're coming?
It's let them know we're coming, but we're not just coming, that we're coming in force, that there is that there is an intimidation factor with the drums that were used in that way. And it was not something I can relate to or understand, but I have read about it. It's certainly an intimidating thing when used in that way, and it's pretty intense when you get, when you hand an army, hand drums over to an army, and boy, wouldn't that be a dream come true to swap guns for drums,
right?
And skip the guns altogether and just use the drums.
Tell me more about Arthur Hall. And he was really interesting. I saw the video, and he really was working the room like a conductor, and he had this side playing a certain way, and then the other side of the room playing a certain way, and he's running around.
Yeah, Arthur is definitely one of my mentors and teachers. He and I've known Arthur for probably 19 of the 21 years that I've been doing this professionally. He is the kind of the granddaddy of doing drum circles as a profession and not just a thing that a bunch of hippies do in the parking lot at a concert. There's he has mastered a facilitation technique that pretty much guarantees that you can lock in a group, no matter how big, no matter how unskilled, that you can lock in a group with your body language mainly. You don't want to have to rely on your voice in a drum circle. I use a PA sound system with a wireless headset microphone when I do this, but only to sing with the songs that we play. What he does is 100% body language and conduct, and he actually is conducting the group to bring about that entrainment, that group cohesion, and he does it in corporate settings. He's taught. I think when I produced my film and interviewed him 2 or 3 years ago, he was at about 22,000 people that he has trained to do drum circles.
Wow.
And not just come to a drum circle and play, but to lead drum circles. So his following is huge and it's international. He's been doing workshops in Australia and Ireland and all over the world for 30 years. And we all, he's one of my mentors. We all look back a bit beyond him to a gentleman named Babatunde Olatunji, who is a Nigerian drummer who came to America back in the 1950s from Nigeria on a scholarship to study government and politics. And the idea was that he would come here, study government, and then go back to Nigeria and become a leader in his country. And at that point, we're talking the 1950s.
Right.
And he was, I think, attended university in Louisiana. And so at that point in our history, he was dropped into, a segregationalist South that he observed from the perspective of a very intelligent, very bright African. And after 4 years of attending school here, he decided it was actually more important for him to stay here in America and use the positive life skills that he learned growing up, and music and dance and storytelling, to bring that to the American public, starting in the 50s. And his first record album was produced in 1959, and it won a Grammy Award. I'm not exactly sure what award it was, but it was the Grammy. He won a Grammy, and then went on to record dozens of albums and play with. He started a band with the drummer from the Grateful Dead, Mickey Hart, who's a world-renowned ethnomusicologist. Everybody knows him as the drummer in the Dead, but he's actually written 4 books and has released dozens of albums over the years that are 100% world percussion music.
Right.
And so Baba and Mickey worked together for many years on Planet Drum, and Baba was a teacher as well. He taught thousands of people to do what we do, and I had the honor of meeting him twice One of which times he blessed my kids, which I thought was awesome. And unfortunately, I started drumming in around 1998, and he passed away in 2001. So it was a short, experience of getting to know him, but his music is obviously, will always be a part of my top 10 list. You listen to his records, especially the one that won the Grammy, it's called Drums of Passion.
Okay.
And it's just unbelievable at what is it, 70, 60 years old. It's going to be 60 years old. And it's the most powerful recording you'll ever hear. Drums of Passion, Baba Olatunji.
Drums of Passion.
Yeah,
I'm writing
and
that
Arthur
down.
was a devil. Arthur and Baba spent a lot of time together, as well as some of my other teachers in the Boston area. Hosted him yearly on for workshops, and he would stay with them for weeks, and has had a profound effect on all of us who do this.
As we wrap up this conversation, you mentioned that drumming and being a facilitator is a very social experience, and so you've been kind of shut down with that because of this pandemic. And you're also a filmmaker and a photographer, and that's social too. You got to get out there unless you're just in the wilderness. So how are you coping with being locked down basically since March?
Yeah, it hasn't been easy for sure. Financially, I'm collecting unemployment for the first time in my life. And I'm not doing the work that I feel is so much needed right now. Like I want to be out there because I know the drums bring people together, and boy, do we need that right now.
Right.
My hope is that there will be a huge rebound for me. Of course, this is the optimist in me. That I will be working my butt off, as soon as the virus sort of runs its course. I think drumming and any sort of primal ceremonial rituals will be appreciated for what they can do to bring people together and give them a joyous experience, give them a musical experience. I'm very patiently sitting back and waiting for the right time to reintroduce what I do. And in the meantime, I'm just, I'm chilling.
Mother Nature has slowed us down, my friend.
Yeah, for sure. And that's okay. We needed this. We so needed this.
Yeah.
And it's a huge head check for every human on the planet to slow down and connect and be healthy, take care of ourselves and take care of each other, look after each other.
Where can folks come say hello to you on social media?
Hands on Drumming CT is the website and the Facebook page. Hands on Drum CT is the website .com, and then my film, which is about the wellness of drumming, is kind of making the film festival circuit right now, and not that that's really exists at the moment, but we've entered into multiple film festivals, and we're getting accepted and awarded in just about all of them. That's Rhythms of Life and roldoc.com. And I'll hopefully be out there in the world sharing my drums as soon as humanly possible.
I want to play some more Cosmic Hue before this podcast ends. But first, I just want to remind you that my new meditation album is available for streaming or download on Spotify, Apple, and Google. Let me know how you like it. DM me on the social media or email me through the website. For all my work, you can find me at drreese.com. That's doctor spelled out. And I'll talk to you on the next episode. Here's some more Cosmic Hue.
Thanks for listening to Inner Peace with Dr. Reese. If this episode opened your heart, feel free to share on social media and tell your loved ones. Also, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, may peace be with you.